My talk, the reason I called it AI first engineering is specifically, I think the rate at which AI and AI assisted development or auto generation of code, applications, end to end solutions, the pace at which it is taking off, one of the biggest problems that I perceive is the fact that everybody has gotten so output oriented. The ability to actually achieve your output results in a very, very short period of time is making it almost a path to get to production as fast as possible without thinking of whether the right scaffolding to ensure that everything that is needed to make a mid to large size organization operating at scale is in place or not, right? I mean, if you're a small startup and you are going to be experimenting with your product, you can go zero base and build out the entire application with a zero engineering team or a very small engineering team, get more than a POC out, get the first class product out, and start working from there. But if you're a mid-sized organization, a lot of people struggle to find the right path. And sometimes you end up over-indexing on the output and driving the engineering team to produce the results without creating the framework for them. So what is this framework, right? I think the way we look at it at PhonePe is to actually ensure that what are we trying to solve? One, we are obviously trying to solve for significantly increased efficiency of a large engineering team, right? Second one, we're trying to solve for the fact that we are able to take AI first features to production as fast as possible for our user base. And the third one, we're trying to actually increase the efficiency of all operations within the company, right? Across the board, right? These are called either back offices or operations across the corporate functions. It doesn't matter. There's an opportunity to actually leverage AI to drive significant automation through all these functions so that the productivity of the entire organization and not just the engineering workforce goes up. How do you make this transition? One approach is to basically get the licenses for your agentic tools, get the licenses for the API keys to the LLMs of your choice, and let the organization go wild. What will happen though is over time you'll start discovering issues in terms of authorization of use, access to knowledge bases that are scattered across the entire organization. Potentially you will actually end up with security issues, overuse of the LLM tokens to the point that you now have to invest significantly to try to bring down costs. So how do you actually prepare an organization to move into an AI first engineering world? The way I look at it, you start looking at saying that what is the AI infrastructure that I need to create, right? I'll give a very simple example of what would be a basic first step for any organization to look at their AI infrastructure. You first say that you create what is called as a inference engine and LLM gateway. What does that do? You basically mandate that any inferencing, which is the most common thing that you probably do for the organization for building out any consumer product or AI first features, is basically drive inferencing. Create a singular gateway that then acts as a router for multiple LLMs. Yeah, you could use open source LLMs that are potentially hosted by you. You could actually point to the hyperscalers and use the APIs there. You could program your API keys there. You're then able to actually build this single layer that supports all sorts of inferencing requests, regular request responses, scheduled, batch, and then underneath, you actually support authorization, create the OAuth model within the company for all your systemic accesses to the inference engine, create quotas, right? So you can actually establish quotas that will be there. So it will also have a quota engine with a rate limiter. You'll be able to create policies that say that either for certain types of workflows, for example, if it's a batch and you're running a batch and you don't necessarily have the pressure of delivering low latency responses on the inferencing, you probably don't want to use a model that is actually significantly more expensive because it's much faster. So you'll be able to apply those policies. So to have something like a inferencing gateway and an LLM gateway, before you start unlocking entire value that is across an engineering workforce of 50, 100 engineers, makes a lot of sense, right? You'll also be able to actually put, for a company like us, compliance controls, right? We have AI itself centrally on the gateway, monitoring the data that is going through, looking at any patterns that we believe we should not be sharing for whatever reason, right? It could be for a data localization, regulatory requirement, or anything else, and potentially failing those requests. Applying such controls, applying rate limiting, and then unlocking the value, having cost control, I think is the right approach. Similarly, another thing that you can actually build is a vector database or a vector data store with namespacing. What will that do? That will actually ensure that you're able to create knowledge bases across the organization, centralized for any sort of RAG application that is based on pattern matching, which is again a very, very common workflow. And on top of that, build a simple marketplace or an open source marketplace of agents, right? What will that do? We are able to now create so many agents for all the workflows within the company. You don't want it to be one, a scattered set of agents that are running on production. Two, you want to be able to have the highest level of reuse even on those agents itself. So creating an agent marketplace, creating tools for that agent marketplace that connects to all your communication platforms. Maybe it's Slack, email, your Confluence, your documentation set, giving it access to a knowledge base, and then creating a simple workflow model for a drag and drop for any non-tech or operations team to create the workflows would be a great starting point as a agent hub. So what we have then is an entire platform that consists of an agent hub. It consists of an inferencing engine. It consists of a vector database. And this combined would be a great starting point as just a scaffolding to unlock AI. Because what are the LLMs that you're using? What are the assists that you're using? What are the frameworks that you're using for development will keep changing. At the pace that we are going, what is great today, tomorrow something other will come out. But this scaffolding will not change because it provides the right amount of controls for you to actually unlock value. The other part from an engineering perspective is the zero-based problem versus the mature code problem. There are projects that are completely zero-based that can take off with Claude code and significant amount of prompt engineering with very limited amount of interactions of an engineer in path. But there's a significant amount of code, maybe thousands or lakhs of lines of code that already exist. In such a SDLC environment, how do you actually bring in the right engineering practices? Obviously, code assist and code generation is one aspect that is well explored. The greatest efficiency actually comes from looking at your SDLC path and seeing in the existing pipeline, what are the opportunities for driving higher efficiency, right? Testing is a classic example. You want to be able to actually completely automate testing, create plugins for whichever is the IDE of your choice to do actually UT generation inline to code generation for 100% UT coverage, right? Merge requests, very common problem in any SDLC. Start looking at whether you can actually fine-tune existing models on the best engineer who's doing a merge request in your organization, right? Who are actually doing the merge reviews. Fine-tune them on the basis of that engineer because they understand the patterns that have worked best, and then unlock a complete automated, no human in loop merge approvals. Look at every step of your SDLC process in a mature organization and take an opportunity to target that with smaller solutions rather than just throwing the entire kitchen sink of saying, let's do code generation and everything end to end and start zero base. Because what that will do is it will retain what I call as the knowledge store, the human knowledge store, while also enabling them significantly. My worry always remains is that while we've got the velocity and we've got the ability to move really fast, 99% of the time, everything works really well. The 1% of the time that you actually start having production issues, if you're gone completely zero base and removed engineers from the path, the ability to actually react with a mean time to recovery being low enough that you don't cause significant damage to your business or your consumers is something that you always have to think about. So taking a view of your existing SDLC process and acting as a very strong enabler, starting with a human in path, reducing the time, and then taking the human out of the loop I think is the right approach. So all in all, request is move fast, lean in completely into AI, absorb all the tool sets, but look at two things. One, what is the scaffolding you want to actually build as an organization before you actually unleash AI across the entire team? And two, try to actually first take a view of not necessarily going zero base on existing code, but taking a view of increasing efficiency on every path of the SDLC process, and then taking the paths towards complete automation. So food for thought, may not necessarily be the most popular opinion, but the fact is, I think it is the discretion being the better part of valor. We all agree that the world is changing. AI is here to stay. There is no question. It has immense, immense potential, but trying to actually use it the right way versus using it the fastest way immediately is the only request that I have. Thank you. That's all I had.